Hello, everyone. Today we're going to step into a story that might feel like your own shadow. You're staring at your laptop again, screen glowing, emails unread, and your last hope already bounced back with a curt thanks, but no thanks. Your inbox is basically a graveyard of rejection letters. And yet, here you are again. You may not know, but the facts show some of the most successful people failed more than they succeeded, but only until they didn't. It's not about the clean wins. It's about what happens after failure number 33. Through this video, you have learned many concepts and effects of Inspire. Hopefully, with that useful knowledge, it will help you achieve results with Inspire as soon as possible. And don't forget to follow the channel, click like, and turn on the bell to watch the latest videos about Inspire. See you again. You shuffle through another morning like a zombie in yoga pants. The coffee is lukewarm because you forgot it while refreshing your email. Again, it's been 17 months since you started chasing this dream. Maybe it was a startup idea, maybe a book, maybe getting your paintings into a gallery. Whatever it was, it's starting to feel like an ex who never calls back. The first few rejections didn't sting. You told yourself, just part of the process. By the 10th, you started proofreading your pitches like they were legal contracts. By the 21st, you began Googling, is it normal to fail this much? Spoiler, it is. There's a tiny notebook on your desk, crease in the middle, the spine tired of holding on. In it, you've scribbled down every attempt, cold calls, emails, walk-ins, pitches, back of napkin brainstorms, page after page of number. But you don't stop. Why? You don't really know. Maybe it's the weird compulsion that hits some people to finish what they started. Or maybe it's because every time you almost quit, a quote floats up from the abyss. Something you read about Thomas Edison failing 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. You roll your eyes at it now, but it still lives rent-free in your head. And here's where things take a turn, not up, but sideways. You go to a free networking event, mostly for the free mini quiches. You meet a man wearing a bright orange scarf and shoes that squeak every time he turns. He tells you he's a creative energy coach, whatever that means. You smirk inside, but listen anyway. He says, sometimes the problem isn't failure, it's falling in love with the idea of struggling. You blink. That's too real for someone you met 7 seconds ago. On the train ride home, his words bother you. Are you addicted to the grind? Is the struggle some kind of emotional security blanket? You try to shake it off, but later, standing at the sink doing dishes you should have done 3 days ago, your brain replays it again, in love with the idea of struggling. There are many people who still argue about the results of Inspire, whether it's willpower or sheer luck. But for some, the 34th attempt isn't born of genius. It's born of sheer, beautiful stubbornness. Let's go back a little. You were 9 when you first told someone you wanted to make something great. Maybe it was your mom while she folded laundry. Maybe it was a school counselor who replied with the dreaded, "That's nice, but what's your backup plan?" You learned early that big dreams make people uncomfortable, like wearing glitter to a funeral. They nod, but their eyes don't smile. You grew up on the outskirts of belief. You weren't the star student, the star athlete, or the kid with family connections. You were the one who stayed late after class, not because you were curious, but because you were confused. You had to try twice as hard to get half as far. Failure wasn't a new guest. It was a lifelong roommate. And yet you kept showing up. You applied again and again. You pitched your app to 9 accelerators. You sent your manuscript to 14 agents. You painted your 30th canvas and uploaded it to an Etsy store no one knew existed. There was no applause, no comments, no wow. But you showed up anyway. That is where most people quit. There's a Japanese word, gaman, which means to endure the seemingly unbearable with patience and dignity. You wouldn't tattoo it on your arm, but you live it in your bones. Your friends don't understand anymore. At brunch, while they talk about salaries and health insurance and vacation days, you smile politely and say, "You're still working on the thing." They nod. They don't ask questions anymore. One of them sends you a job listing. You stare at it for a long time. Full-time, decent benefits, good company. You even save it to your desktop, but you don't apply. Not yet. Instead, you open that notebook again. You stare at number 33, your latest no, and without even realizing it, you turn the page. Number 34 wasn't even supposed to happen. You had promised yourself that the next rejection would be the last. Your dignified exit, your grand farewell to this whole exhausting fantasy. You were going to take a break, which in your vocabulary meant putting your dream in a drawer and burying it under 3 sweaters and a pile of adult responsibilities. But that morning, something odd happened. You overslept. The alarm didn't go off. Well, it did, but your thumb was apparently training for the Olympics in snooze button gymnastics. You missed your bus, you spilled coffee on your only clean shirt, and then, for reasons only known to the universe and your slightly fried brain, you submitted the pitch to number 34. It was a forum thread, actually. Not even an official contest or application, just someone asking, "Any new ideas for a community-based wellness project?" You squinted at the screen. Your fingers hesitated. You almost closed the tab, but you didn't. You replied with a paragraph you didn't overthink for once. No keywords, no sales copy, just a quiet explanation of what you'd been building in the secret for over a year. A mobile app that didn't scream productivity, but whispered reminders of rest, joy, and connection. You called it Still. You clicked submit, shut your laptop, and walked away. 2 days later, a message came. Not from a bot, not from a thanks, but it was a woman named Lila. She ran a nonprofit that focused on trauma recovery and mental health in underserved communities. Her message said, "I love what you're doing. Can we talk more?" You stared at those words like they were in a foreign language. You didn't even feel happy at first. You felt suspicious. You clicked her name, stalked her profile, looked for red flags. Surely this was another trap, right? A scam? A maybe disguised as a no? But no, Lila was real. And she wasn't just interested, she was kind. Her voice on the phone was gentle but direct, like someone who knew exactly what failure tasted like and didn't judge you for still licking your wounds. "Your project matters," she said. "I've been looking for something like this for months." You didn't know what to say. So you made a weird joke about your code being held together by duct tape and wishful thinking. She laughed. "Even better. Means it's honest." Honest. That word did something to you. In the weeks that followed, you and Lila exchanged emails, voice notes, and half-finished thoughts. She gave you a space to pitch to her board. 5 people in a room with folding chairs, one of them eating chips too loudly, one of them scrolling their phone during your demo. But they listened, and they said yes. A small yes, a partnership, a micro grant, enough to build a beta version and run a test with 200 users. It wasn't the jackpot. It wasn't even rent for 2 months, but it was the first Yes. Here's the twist. The first win isn't sweet. It's terrifying. There are many people who still argue about the results of Inspire, whether early success creates momentum or just more pressure. You started to feel it immediately, the weight of someone else's belief sitting on your shoulders like a toddler with sticky hands. What if you failed now in front of someone who finally said yes? It's one thing to fail in silence, it's another to do it on stage. You remember reading about Oprah Winfrey, how she was fired from her first job as a news anchor because she was too emotionally invested. Can you imagine? The queen of empathy was once told she cared too much, but she didn't change her wiring. She leaned in. She built an empire from what once disqualified her. That thought gets you through your first week of coding hell, your first user who rage quits the app because the button is too slow, and your first sleepless night refreshing error logs with your face in a bowl of cereal. Inspiration doesn't always feel like a sunrise. Sometimes it's a fluorescent kitchen light at 3:04 a.m. and a blinking cursor that won't stop mocking you. But you keep going. Here's a sidebar you didn't expect. One of your first users is a retired ballet dancer named Ramona. She's 67, living in a senior home, and says she uses Still every night before bed. She sends you a message that reads, "Your app is the only thing that doesn't talk down to me." You almost cry, then you actually do. Then you laugh at yourself for crying while eating leftover spaghetti at your desk again. Ramona becomes your favorite bug reporter. Every time she sends feedback, she signs off with, "Keep going, young man." Young man, you haven't been called that in years. You consider printing it out and framing it. Lila helps you refine your pitch, and suddenly you're being invited to small startup showcases. People clap at the end of your presentations now, which feels illegal. Investors nod, take notes. Some even say, "Let's connect." You're still broke, by the way. You're still debugging code with online tutorials and sticky notes. But the ground feels different now. Less like a pit, more like a path. There's a quiet shift. You start introducing yourself without hesitation. "I'm building a wellness platform," you say. Not trying to, not hoping to. You own it. Like a person who belongs in the room. And maybe, just maybe, you do. You'd think after the first yes, the rest would fall like dominoes. Spoiler, they don't. Turns out success doesn't replace failure, it just invites it to dinner in a nicer suit. After the beta launch, things get messy fast. The app crashes during a live demo. A promised investor ghosts you the day before signing. Ramona accidentally deletes her profile and emails in all caps, threatening to report you to the Pope. You laugh, but only after crying, in that order. Still, you push forward. Because you're no longer chasing applause. You're building something that exists, that lives in someone else's phone, in their daily rhythm, in their small moments. And somehow, that's more sacred than the numbers. Let's talk numbers anyway, because your brain keeps score whether you want it to or not. You go from 200 users to 1,200 in 4 months. A small mental health blog writes about your app. Then a podcast picks it up. You do an interview where your voice shakes so much, the host offers you water through the microphone. The host tells you afterward, "People like hearing from someone who's not polished. Keep it messy." And so you do. One late night, you open a message that stops you cold. It's from a teacher in rural Michigan. Her students, kids dealing with grief, foster care, and food insecurity, have been using Still during quiet hour. She says, They don't talk much, but they open up more after 10 minutes with your app. It's like it lowers the volume of their pain. You reread that message 4 times. Then you do something totally uncharacteristic. You go outside and scream into the night sky, "Thank you for number 34." A neighbor sticks her head out and yells, "You good, bro?" You wave and say, "Just inspired." But here's where the real story lives. Not in the highlight reel, but in the scars. Because no matter how many downloads you hit, or how many quiet messages slide into your inbox with stories of peace, that notebook still sits on your shelf. The one with 33 failures before the spark. And sometimes, on a particularly tough day, you flip back through those pages, not to punish yourself, but to remember who you were before the world clapped. You see, there's a strange power in not being chosen for a long, long time. It builds a kind of clarity. You stop pretending to be something you're not. You stop seeking shortcuts. You begin designing not for applause, but for alignment. It reminds you of Albert Einstein. He wasn't exactly embraced by the academic community at first, failed his university entrance exam, was told he lacked imagination, and yet he redefined how we understand the very fabric of time, all while looking like he lost a bet with a hairbrush. Einstein, Edison, Oprah, none of them skipped the line of failure. They just refused to leave it. There are many people who still argue about the results of Inspire, whether it's a mindset you build or a spark you wait for. But you've lived it now. You know it's both. It's showing up when it doesn't make sense, and listening, really listening, when that one yes finally whispers back. A final oddball twist before we fade. Remember the man with the squeaky shoes and orange scarf? The creative energy coach? You run into him again. Different event, different snacks. You walk up, reintroduce yourself, and thank him. He shrugs. I say a lot of weird things. He chuckles. But sometimes the right ears are listening. He pulls a card from his pocket. You expect it to say something weird like Chief Vibesmith. But it just says his name, and beneath it, inspiration is a muscle. Use it daily. You keep the card. It's been 2 years now. The app isn't perfect. It never will be. But it's alive. It's evolving. And it carries with it the fingerprints of every failure that came before it. You speak at conferences now. Your shirt isn't always clean. Your slide deck still has typos. But people listen. They nod. They laugh when you tell the story of Ramona and her sacred all-caps messages. They lean forward when you say, I failed 33 times before one person said yes. You watch someone in the third row wipe a tear, and you know they're on failure number 32. You smile because you know what's coming. So here you are now, sitting in the glow of your own resilience. The noise of rejection has quieted, not because the world suddenly got kinder, but because you learned how to listen differently. You no longer measure worth by how many doors open, but by how bravely you keep knocking, even when it's raining. You've walked through dark mornings, through quiet rooms filled with nothing but hope and anxiety, through days when your only companion was your own doubt, and you kept going. That's not nothing, that's a revolution. And maybe the point of Inspire was never to get there faster, cleaner, shinier. Maybe it was to find out who you really are when no one else is watching, because the truth is, someone always is. A stranger on the edge of quitting, a friend pretending to be fine, a younger version of you still hiding behind silence. And maybe, just maybe, your story is what pulls them forward. So take a breath. You've earned the stillness. You've earned the lightness. You've earned the yes. Let this final moment stretch long, like a quiet horizon, soft, steady, unhurried. Because in the end, inspire isn't a finish line. It's what happens when you decide that one more try is worth the trouble. And whisper by whisper, you help others believe the same. Sleep well, builder. You've made it through.